Hi, I'm Denise Spanos, and I'm here today to talk to you about employees and independent contractors and how you tell them apart. There are three things that you should consider when you're trying to determine whether or not a worker is an employee or an independent contractor. The first is behavioral control. This really determines the kind of instructions that you provide for your worker. If you tell your worker when to work, where to work, and how to do the work, then chances are they're an employee. If, on the other hand, you allow them to do the work on their schedule and allow them to do the work at their place of business and allow them to determine the actual steps that are taken to be able to complete the project for you, then they are more than likely an independent contractor. Another consideration is whether or not you provide the tools and equipment that they use. For an employee, you would provide tools and equipment that are necessary for them to do their job. For an independent contractor, you would expect them to have the tools and equipment that they need to do the job. You would also determine for your employee when to and where to purchase supplies and other services that are used by that employee. You would assign work to an employee and pick out the particular person that you want to do the work. In an independent contractor, you would contract with one person, and whether they did the work or someone that worked for them did the work would not really be an issue that you would be interested in. What you would be looking for with an independent contractor is simply the completion of the work that you have asked them to do. With an independent contractor, you would not provide them with a place to work. So if you're looking to hire someone that will be working at your place of business, then chances are they're an employee. You would not determine the time that they actually worked if they were an independent contractor. For example, if they wanted to work at 3 a.m., that would be okay. With an employee, maybe not so much. And you would have less control with an independent contractor over the work process that they would actually use. The more detailed instructions that you provide and the more control that you have over the work that is actually being done, the more likely you are to have an employee. If you're providing less detailed instructions and have less control over the business, this indicates that chances are the worker may be an independent contractor. Another important step is the evaluation process. Do you evaluate how the employed or how the person does the work? If so, chances are they are an employee. If you're really only interested in evaluating the finished product, then they may be an independent contractor. The second way that you can determine whether or not it's an employee or an independent contractor is to look at the investment that the worker would have in doing the work for you. Employees are rarely asked to provide tools or equipment to do their work. Those are usually provided by the employer. An independent contractor, on the other hand, would be expected to have the tools and equipment that are necessary to do the work for you. There are some exceptions to this. For example, a mechanic is expected to have his own tools, although not all the equipment that would be necessary for them to do their job, and they're still considered employees. Independent contractors are more likely to have unreimbursed expenses than an employee, because normally with an employee, if they have expenses that are necessary for them to do their job, then those are usually covered by the employer. The same thing is true about training. For example, with an employee, it's not unusual to be provided training. On the other hand, with an independent contractor, you would not provide training. You would expect them to either already be trained or to pay for the training themselves. Employees are normally on a regular schedule for how they're paid. They're paid usually in an hourly way. They're paid weekly or bi-weekly or once a month, but there's always a regular schedule for this. An independent contractor is normally paid when they finish doing a job. So this schedule of payment is something else that you need to take into consideration when you're trying to determine whether or not someone is an employee or an independent contractor. And the final thing that you need to look at is the permanency of the relationship. For example, when you hire an employee, you normally hire them for an undetermined term. They are going to work for you until you decide that you don't need them to work for you anymore. With an independent contractor, it's normally a relationship that goes job to job. If you have questions and you're not sure of whether or not your worker would be an employee or an independent contractor, you can submit a form SS8 to the IRS. It takes about 6 months, but they'll make a determination and send it to you and to the worker to tell them whether or not they are an employee or an independent contractor. There's a couple of other things that I'd like to talk to you about employees and independent contractors. One thing is that with an employee, you're going to be required to have them fill out a W-4, which is a form that allows them to claim the exemptions that they have so that you know how much income tax they have to have withheld. You will also have to pay the employer's portion of Social Security and Medicare taxes for your employees, as well as unemployment taxes that would be paid to your state and to the federal government. With an independent contractor, you would have them fill out an I-9 form, and they would be given a 1099 at the end of the year to let them know how much money they made with you if they made $600 or more. Now, with the summer coming up, one of the things that you might want to consider if you're hiring help is that you could hire your children to work for you. If they're between the ages of, say, 10 and 18, then this is an absolutely wonderful opportunity for you to have an employee and not have to pay the employment taxes that you would normally have to pay. In order to qualify, you have to be a sole proprietor, a partnership that is owned by a husband and a wife, or a single member or two-member husband and wife LLC. In these cases, what you can do for your children who are 18 or under is you can pay them a wage and then not have to pay the withheld income tax or Social Security or Medicare taxes for them. If they make up to $12,000, they would have to file an income tax return, but they'd be able to claim the standard deduction, so up to $12,000 would not be taxable. This is a great way to be able to put money aside for your children and have them participate in your business and feel like they have earned something. In order for this to work, you need to pay them by check or money transfer from your bank into a checking account or a savings account that is in their name. It's not recommended that you pay them in cash, and it's not recommended that you pay them in goods or services because these are looked at poorly by the IRS. So you really do have to pay them just like you would pay an employee. You would have to keep track of the hours that they actually work, just like you would with an employee. And you would pay them at an hourly rate, just like you would with an employee. The hourly rate would need to be something that would be in keeping with the kind of work that they're doing. For example, if you have a 10-year-old who is emptying trash and sweeping the floor in your shop, then paying them something along the lines of minimum wage would be appropriate. If they're doing more for you, then paying them $10 or $15 an hour is something that you could do. And this is a great way to get them involved in your business and get them so that they have a good work ethic. At the same time, you'll be not paying income tax on money that you would just give them if they didn't do this work. So it's an excellent way for you to be able to save on your employment taxes and get your children involved in your business. If the child is between the ages of 19 and 21, they still have to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes, but you don't have to pay unemployment taxes for them. If you'd like more information on this, just tag me and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll talk to you soon.